All right, so today we are going to talk about, if you are just getting started in weight training, how to choose a weight that's going to challenge you. So I do want to reiterate, this is as part of a blog post, so make sure that you listen to the recording or read the blog post. But we're going to start slow. I want to reiterate, when I get a client in here for the first time and it's been years since they lifted, or if they've never lifted before, I want to make it really clear that we start out light and in most cases with certain movements, body weight. So I'm going to take you through the process of how I try to figure out where a client is so that I can meet them where they are. And this is the same process that if I were a newbie lifter going into the gym, that I would take myself through. And I know how hard it is to walk into a gym and have the confidence to go over to the heavier weights. So if it's a struggle for me, I know that it's going to be a struggle for somebody who's totally new to lifting to walk into that section of the gym. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Hopefully that if you're going to follow along with this video or if you're learning how to lift, do make sure that you warm up a little bit first. So I usually do about 5 minutes on the treadmill. So I've already got that all taken care of. And then sometimes I'll do some, like if I'm lifting heavier for me, I'm going to do some body weight movements just to make sure that everything is primed and warmed up. But we're going to jump right into this. And I'm going to show you how I figure out like how heavy should somebody be lifting and sort of give you demonstrations on how to determine like, am I challenging myself enough? Because that's where, aside from not working out at all, the biggest mistake that I see women make is not challenging themselves enough in the gym. So they've been lifting, the 5 or the 10-pound dumbbells for the last 6 months. And they're like, well, yeah, I'm not getting results. And it's because you're not pushing your body you're not trying to force an adaptation in the body. And lifting is all about that progressive overload. So usually I start clients with 5 big lifts. So we do squats, deadlifts, rows, overhead presses, and chest presses. There are certainly many more variations of exercises you can do, variations on those lifts, but we start with the basics because those are the movements that are going to get you about 90% of your results. So let's start with the squat. I almost always start clients with the squat on a body weight. So, and in many cases, if they're not used to squatting, I do a squat assessment with my clients. If they're not used to squatting, I'm going to have them squat onto a bench or do a touch and go, which is going to put them in a better position. It's going to put their body in the right position. So we're always starting with this body weight. So I'll have them do 10. And then if they tell me that they easily could have done 5 more, then we're going to put a 10-pound weight in their hands. So we're going to do 10 squats. 2, you can see I'm pushing the bench helps me remember that I need to push my butt backwards instead of, a lot of people want to squat like that. No, you got to push your hips backwards in your squat. And I'm watching in the mirror to make sure my knees are tracking out over my toes. All right, so my client is now telling me, Kelly, that was pretty easy. I feel like, I felt a little bit of burn in my thighs, but maintained my form through the exercise. Didn't feel any pain in my knees, hips, ankles. I definitely think I could have done 5 more of those. I'm like, okay, we're gonna go over here. And we're going to grab a 10-pound weight. And again, we're going to test. Can we do this with the same amount of control and form? So we're going to go ahead and do 10 more of these. All right, so you don't need to watch me do 10 more of those. So once they get done with the 10-pound weight, I'm going to ask the same question. How many more could you have done? And then we might do a 3rd set with either the same weight or a slightly heavier weight. But again, that's how I'm figuring out where my client is with something like the squat. And the same thing goes with something else like an overhead press. We're gonna start now with overhead presses. We're not gonna start body weight because you're really not gonna feel much of anything. So the overhead press works the shoulders, but with overheads, we start with a really light weight. So I have 8-pound weights here. We're gonna start these at the shoulder, and then we're gonna press up. So again, same thing. I usually start clients with a 10 to 12 rep range. So there's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. How many more of those could I have done? If my client is saying, well, I definitely, like, I could feel a little bit of a burn in my shoulders, I could feel it, but I could definitely have done 5 or more, then on next set, I'm gonna give them 10-pound weights. Okay, so that's how I'm figuring it out. And sometimes it does take more than one session to figure out how much weight you should be using. So don't get discouraged if the first time you go into the gym to lift, you're like, I don't know if I really did much of anything. I still didn't really feel challenged. It can take several sessions of you very gradually bumping up the weights to see and build that confidence, but to see where you're actually at. Now, in my blog post, I did mention a couple of things about using the weights. So one thing I wanted to kind of demonstrate for you was this idea, you're probably lifting too light if you are able to just throw your weights around and you're able to do your reps really fast. So I'm going to kind of demonstrate that. All right, so for me, this is a 15-pound kettlebell. I'm going to do some squats. This is a very, very light weight for me. So I could do my reps super fast and super sloppy. So, like, you know, if you see somebody at the gym doing this, it's like, woo, we're having fun, okay? If you're able to do your reps super fast and you're able to be like really sloppy, that weight is way too light. So I'm gonna walk over here and I'm gonna grab my 35-pound kettlebell. Now, don't just jump if you're using a 15, don't just go grab a 35, okay? You have to remember that I've been lifting for more than 10 years, so I know what I can lift. I would never jump somebody from a 15 to a 35 unless I absolutely knew their ability. So, but as a demonstration, this is a much heavier weight. Definitely not my max, but here's what you're going to notice. When you're lifting a weight that challenges you and that's heavy enough, you have to control the weight. Like, there's no way that I'm going to do the speed with this because I'd hurt myself. And in an effort to protect my body, I'm going to be much more under control. So you will find that a heavier weight helps you maintain control. So it's a balance between finding a weight that's just heavy enough, but not too heavy that it affects your form. All right, so you can tell I have to be much more mindful and conscious with this weight. So keeping that in mind. Another thing I wanted to demonstrate was kind of that feeling that you're going to get the last couple of reps. I usually tell a client that your last 2 to 3 reps of a set should feel pretty challenging. Like, you should kind of be making a little bit of a face, or it should be a little bit of a struggle. So I like to use overhead presses as an example. So let's just use the 8s. So I got here. So if I pump out 10 of these, this is a weight that's far too light for me. It's very easy. my heart rate's going up, so you might be able to hear me like with breathing a little bit harder, but I feel like I could do this forever. Not making faces, not dropping F-bombs in my head. Very easy. Now, gonna give my shoulders a second to rest. I'm gonna use a weight that is much closer to my max. And in fact, I'm gonna use a weight today that is a real challenge for me. It might be a little bit too heavy. I might not even make my rep range. So I'm gonna use the 25s. So this is a hard weight for me. And what you'll see is that by the 7th or 8th rep, it's gonna be a struggle. And it might even be a struggle by the 1st or 2nd. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, I'm gonna get 10, 10. Okay, so that, the faces I was making, I was dropping F-bombs in my mind, but you could see that at least the last 3 or 4 were a struggle for me to get there. And I even had to stop and pause for a second on that last run. So that is kind of how it should feel when you are challenging yourself. It is going to feel difficult when you're doing it right. You just need to make sure that you understand your form, understand the muscles that you're working, and that you are being aware of your body through this process. So if you have questions about any of this, please feel free to get in touch with me. My email address is kellybailey1980@gmail.com, or you can fill out my contact form on my website, and I will get back to you as soon as I possibly can. So have a great day. I hope this helped.